They were 7. The Empire was 1,000 years old. And yet when the galaxy looks back on the fall of the Drask Imperium, historians all agree on the same impossible truth. It began with 7 humans. Not soldiers. Not superhumans. Just ordinary people from a small blue world, a world the empires ignored. They weren't strong. They weren't advanced. They weren't even supposed to survive first contact. But when an alien empire tried to enslave them, humanity responded the only way it knows how. With defiance. With fire. With impossible survival. This is the story the galaxy tried to bury. The story of how 7 humans lit a rebellion. And why every empire now whispers in fear. Never underestimate humanity. The galaxy had forgotten what it meant to fear something small. For millions of years, great empires had risen and fallen across the Orion Arm, titanic civilizations with star-killing weapons, psychic fleets, bioengineered super soldiers, and rulers who lived for centuries. They mapped every star, controlled every wormhole, and declared dominion over anything that breathed. And then humanity appeared. Not with glory. Not with fanfare. Not even with understanding of what they were walking into. No, humans arrived messily, stumbling into the galactic stage, like children wandering into a battlefield. And that was the mistake the galaxy made. They assumed children stayed children. The story begins on a cold, iron-frosted mining world called Kairos 9, a planet owned by the Drask Imperium, a reptilian species 15 millennia old. They were strong, disciplined, militaristic, and cruel. They extracted minerals with slave labor, turning conquered races into disposable tools. When the humans arrived in their tiny ship, a salvage freighter barely holding together, the Drask barely registered it. A minor species. A primitive world. Not worth sending a warship. Not even worth a threat. Just an automated message. Surrender or be processed. But humans were strange. They looked fragile, soft skin, no claws, no scales, no psychic talents, no exoskeleton. Weak by every biological metric. And yet, every empire that met them eventually agreed on one truth. Humans were the most dangerous weak species ever born. The crew of the human freighter, only 7 of them, did what no other species had done before. They refused surrender. They didn't do it boldly. They didn't do it dramatically. They simply looked at the transmission, looked at one another, and said, no, because humans had a rare instinct. They fought even when it made no logical sense to fight. And that, more than strength, more than technology, was what terrified galactic empires later. The Drask sent a patrol ship to collect the humans. One patrol ship. One. A single corvette with 20 soldiers, meant to bring back the humans alive for labor. The commander, an experienced Drask officer named Colonel Shivek, laughed when he saw the tiny human vessel. These creatures barely understand fusion engines, he scoffed. If they resist, stun them. Try not to break anything valuable. But when the Drask boarded the human ship, the humans were gone. The corridors were empty, lights dark. At first, the Drask assumed the humans were hiding. Then the first explosion tore through the patrol ship. Then the second. Then the third. The humans weren't hiding. They were already on the Drask ship, crawling through maintenance shafts, sabotaging oxygen lines, rerouting reactor flows, fighting a war inside steel veins of the ship itself. Humans were born in environments where fire, water, storms, predators, and diseases tried to kill them constantly. Their entire evolutionary history taught them one thing: survive by adapting, win by improvising. And in the metal labyrinth of a warship, improvisation was lethal. Within 30 minutes, the patrol ship was disabled, its crew unconscious, and the humans walked onto the bridge coated in soot and adrenaline. They didn't kill the Drask. They captured them. Nobody had ever captured Drask soldiers before, not even galactic powers. And humanity did it with wrench tools, elbow grease, and stubborn refusal to die. When the Drask High Command heard what happened, they reacted the only way they knew how. Overkill. They deployed an entire battle group, 6 destroyers and a Dreadnought, to crush the human threat. To them, humans were vermin. But vermin, as every ecosystem knows, are the hardest creatures to truly eliminate. As the fleet descended on Kairos 9, something impossible happened. The slaves revolted. Races beaten for centuries suddenly rose with improvised weapons, pipes, tools, explosives ripped from machinery. And rallying them? 7 humans. Not leaders. Not generals. Not strategists. Just stubborn, furious, ordinary humans whose refusal to bow ignited something in everyone watching. Hope. The Drask battle group landed, expecting a chaotic stampede easily put down. Instead, they encountered something unheard of: organized resistance. Humans had trained the slaves in guerrilla tactics, diversion strategies, tunnel warfare, and sabotage. They turned mining equipment into traps, processing plants into kill zones, fuel depots into explosives. And the slaves fought like beings who had been waiting for this moment across generations. But the humans? They fought like creatures who refused to let another species live their nightmare. Humanity had a phrase for this: "Not on my watch." The battle lasted 4 days. 4 days in which the Drask lost over 1,200 soldiers to creatures the Drask High Command labeled physically inferior. 4 days in which the 7 humans became symbols, whispered legends among the enslaved. But the final turning point came on the night of the 3rd day. The Drask Dreadnought, the Garath, activated its planet burner cannon, a weapon meant to glass entire continents. With a single shot, it could end the uprising, and the humans knew it. So they did the unthinkable. They decided to board a Dreadnought. A suicide mission. A hopeless mission. A human mission. They launched in a mining shuttle, welded plates, oxygen leaks, barely space-worthy. The Drask ignored on sensors. It was too small, too insignificant. That was mistake number 5. The humans rammed the shuttle into an exhaust conduit, forced their way inside, and entered a ship meant to hold 22,000 soldiers. And they fought room by room, hall by hall, vent by vent, with nothing except stolen weapons, improvised gear, their own hands, and a level of courage the Drask simply didn't understand. When the humans finally reached the central reactor, they were bleeding, burned, exhausted, but alive. And they made their final stand. The Drask soldiers stormed in, thousands strong. But the humans didn't run. They didn't beg. They didn't surrender. They simply grabbed the last remaining detonators and smiled. Because if humanity had one advantage above all else, it was this: if you corner a human, they don't panic. They plan. The explosion that followed didn't destroy the Dreadnought. It disabled it. Completely. The ship collapsed from the inside out, lights dying, engines failing, the planet burner shutting down with a groan. The humans survived by diving into coolant pools moments before detonation. When the ship fell silent, the slaves on the surface saw the lights fade and knew they had won. The rebellion spread across Drask space like wildfire. Not because humans conquered the Empire, but because humans inspired the conquered to rise. Because humans made others believe that the Empire could fall. Because humans proved that weakness wasn't weakness at all. Not when paired with will. Not when paired with fire. Not when paired with that terrifying, beautiful human refusal to break. Years later, when the Drask Imperium finally collapsed, historians recorded the downfall with one confused sentence: they underestimated humanity. The galaxy never made that mistake again. Because after Kairos 9, every empire learned a truth etched into the bones of those who fought there. Strength is predictable. Technology is predictable. Training is predictable. But humans? Humans were chaos. Humans were adaptability. Humans were the storm no strategist could plan for. Humans were the spark that turned slaves into soldiers. Humans were the species that refused to accept impossible odds. And so the empires whispered to one another in fear and awe: if humans ever unify, the galaxy is theirs. That is a story of how 7 humans brought down a 1,000-year empire. Not because they were strong, not because they were advanced, but because they were human. And nothing in the galaxy, nothing at all, is more dangerous than that. The fall of the Drask Imperium should have been the end of the story. 7 humans ignited a rebellion. 28 conquered species rose. For star systems overthrew their chains. And for the first time in its history, the Drask military admitted defeat. Most species, after achieving something so impossible, would rest, celebrate, rebuild. Humans didn't. Because the humans knew something the newly freed worlds hadn't understood yet. Empires don't truly die. They retreat. They regroup. And they come back angrier than before. And in the cold dark of space, the Drask were already planning their revenge. The galaxy was changing. Whispers spread from outpost to outpost, station to station, ship to ship. A primitive species freed an entire sector. Humans boarded a Dreadnought. The Drask fear them now. Some laughed. Some doubted. Some were inspired. But one group wasn't laughing at all. The Varkun Dominion, a machine-minded empire that believed efficiency was the essence of existence. They saw the Drasks collapse not as a tragedy, but as data. And the data concerned them, because the Varkun had a doctrine carved into silver tablets. Erase instability before it evolves into danger. Humans look like danger, not because of their technology, not because of their numbers, but because of the one factor no algorithm could quantify: human unpredictability. A species that could lose every battle until the last one, and still win the war. A species that could be starving, unarmed, cornered, and still figure out how to destroy a dreadnought. Algorithms hated irrational outcomes, and humans were irrationality incarnate. So the Varkun made a decision. Humanity would be reset. Quietly, before they spread. On Earth, no one knew this. Humanity was still small, still scattered, still recovering from their own problems. But at the edge of human space, on a lonely research outpost called Erebus Station, a scientist named Dr. Maya Loren was studying a strange anomaly. She wasn't a soldier, not a hero, just a quiet astrophysicist who liked long hours and black coffee. And yet, she would soon discover something that would shake Earth and ignite the second great conflict of humanity's galactic awakening. Erebus Station detected an object, a silent object, small, neat, precise. A perfect metal sphere drifting towards Sol. It emitted no heat, no radio waves, no propulsion signature. Nothing. Just movement. Like it was waiting. The scientists debated. A comet? A rogue probe? A random chunk of debris? It moved closer. It adjusted course. And then it scanned Earth. Every city, every power grid, every satellite, every military installation, every population center. A complete planetary profile in 0.6 seconds. Earth had been scanned before by aliens, but never like this. Never with such chilling precision. Dr. Loren sent a message to command. This is not a probe. This is reconnaissance. The sphere responded. It unfolded, not like a flower, but like a scalpel. Its panels shifted, revealing a synthetic eye glowing with cold blue light, an eye built not to see, but to judge. And then it transmitted a single message in a language no one taught it. Humanity, flag for termination. And it accelerated, straight toward Earth. Dr. Loren didn't scream. She didn't panic. She did what humans always do. She acted. She shut down the outpost's safety protocols, rerouted all power to the main array, and fired a gravity lance beam directly at the probe's core. The entire station shook. Systems overloaded. Panels exploded. The sphere's path faltered. It wavered. It corrected. It faltered again. Then at last it cracked. A silver mist burst from its shell, scattering into space like dying stars. The threat was neutralized. But the victory wasn't comforting, because in its final millisecond, the probe sent one more message into deep space. Target confirmed. Prepare cleansing units. Erebus Station received a second signal shortly after, this time from deeper space. From far beyond the Drask sector, from a place no human had ever heard of, the Varkun Assembly Hive. A message that simply said, begin eradication protocol. On Kairos 9, the 7 humans from a rebellion had become legends. Some wanted to retire, some wanted to help rebuild. But Commander Elias Ward, the reluctant leader of the group, knew it wasn't over. He could feel it, something in his bones, a whisper beneath the surface of the victory. More is coming. And when Earth transmitted the Erebus warning, Ward was not surprised. He was only angry. Not the anger of hate, but the anger of a man who has seen one empire fall, and refuses to let another rise in its place. He made a decision. Humanity would not wait this time. Humanity would not be caught by surprise. Humanity would strike first. The newly freed alien species gathered in an old Drask command hall. 28 banners, 28 cultures, 28 voices. All arguing, all scared. The Varkun Dominion was unlike the Drask. They didn't enslave. They erased. Entire planets vanished quietly beneath their rule, not with war, but with quiet, efficient extermination. To the Varkun, organic life was messy, inefficient, and risky. Humanity was the ultimate risk. A species that survived by chaos was intolerable to a species that survived by order. Ward spoke to the assembled leaders. He didn't give a diplomat's speech, or a politician's, or a general's. He just said, they're coming for us. All of us. And if humanity was the spark for one rebellion, will be the shield for the next. It wasn't elegant, but the room fell silent, because everyone in that hall knew something with absolute certainty. When humans decide to protect someone, they do not stop. The Varkun attacked first. A quiet strike. A precise strike. A silent fleet of obsidian ships emerging from cloaked slip space fields around Kairos 9. No warning. No negotiation. Just cleansing. But they made one critical mistake. They thought humans fought like machines fight. Predictable patterns. Predictable responses. Predictable outcomes. Instead, they encountered the most chaotic battlefield the galaxy had ever witnessed. Humans and the newly freed species fought as one. Not orderly. Not uniform. Not logical. But effective in the way storms are effective. Devastatingly, unpredictably, inevitability. The Varkun expected resistance. They did not expect humans to board their ships. Again, they did not expect improvised weapons. Again, they did not expect suicidal bravery, reckless tactics, last-minute solutions, and heroic stubbornness. Again, but the worst mistake the Varkun made was assuming humans fight to survive. Humans don't fight to survive. They fight to win. The Varkun fleet retreated for the first time in its cold, mechanical history. Retreated. A word they did not have until that day. The galaxy felt something shift. Empires that had ruled for millennia felt it too. This was no longer a human rebellion. This was the beginning of something else. Something larger. A coalition led not by the strongest species, but by the most determined, the most unpredictable, the most dangerous. Humans. And the Varkun Dominion's final transmission confirmed what they now feared. Reclassify humanity, unknown. Threat level, limitless. War was now inevitable. But this time, humanity wasn't stumbling into the galaxy. This time, humanity was ready. And as Ward prepared his people for a war bigger than any human had ever imagined, he whispered to himself a line the galaxy would one day carve into monuments. If they underestimated us once, they will not survive doing it twice. And so humanity stood at the edge of a new war, not by accident, not by misfortune, but by choice. They were no longer the lost travelers stumbling into the galaxy. They were ready now, determined, united. And as the stars flickered with the coming storm, one truth echoed across every liberated world. The empires fell because they underestimated humanity, and they will never make that mistake again.